Hi, I'm Laurie Dobson, and this is Island Update. Today is May 20th, 2020. I'm on the island of Great Cranberry, Maine. And I'd like to say today is the 2-month anniversary of when I started doing these videos. It seems like a lifetime ago, to use an old expression, but it seems true because there's so much that's happened in these last 2 months that I've been doing these daily videos. But I found something to talk about every day, and I've been really grateful for this venue, for this chance, because I think it's been a healthy one for me, for sure, talking about what matters in the light of all the things that are changing. So I was going to say today, some of the things I have to get used to are accommodate to new things, new practices and patterns, and one of them is that I'm going to have to stop walking barefoot in the garden now that once next month Bob brings his bees in, and I don't know if you can see them behind me. They're a tiny little speck off in the distance, right there, right in the distance there. 2 beehives that we're gonna fill with bees next month, so we're excited about that. But I won't be able to walk barefoot in the garden because there'll be bees everywhere. I'm very psyched, because being a gardener, that's been part of the deal. You know, you want to be surrounded by this, what they call the blooming, buzzing confusion, but the sense of life everywhere, and happiness and busyness. And yes, thank you for that flower. I will use it and I will make honey with it. You know, and then I saw one honeybee this year, and I didn't last year, but one honeybee yesterday. So I'm glad to see that. A couple bumblebees, butterflies, birds have been lovely. And today, I have to say, here is something that just popped up. Surprises in the garden are fantastic. So there, a purple iris, a couple purple irises coming out quite nicely, with some bleeding heart right around them, and a Burkwood viburnum, Burkwoodi, which is a very nice smelling plant. And things I used to be able to plant all the time that I just love, Leucothea, which is a wonderful shrub, is in there, but sad to say, it doesn't seem too happy. Things have to find a different kind of location. Things aren't always happy when they're first situated. With the soils here, they're different. The zone is different. The whole climate is very different. We're not very far from the sea, so there's salt issues also in the soil, in a lot of rock. This used to be called the rock here. So another thing that we'll have to get used to is the dogs will have to get used to being on leashes all the time. And they're not. Hello. They're not thrilled about that. But we have had osprey circling us quite low and, really specking us out. One in a field doing some dive bombs. I don't know if it was doing that because of a mating ritual or if it was just practicing going into the field or looking closer for the mice or trying to see if they scatter. I'm not sure, but those kinds of practices are kind of uncomfortable, even though I like ospreys. But when they start acting in a menacing way, it's scary. And I think a lot of people are doing that too, in ways that we can interpret that way. And it usually takes a lot of forbearance and assuming best intentions to get past some issues that we have with communication with people. When we're listening to different news sources, when we're hearing different things, but from everywhere, there's this sort of incessant sound of, trying to make us afraid, be afraid, be very afraid. It feels almost as though it's irreverent to downplay the fear angle, but you have to do it for your mental health. Nobody can do it all the time. And so sometimes people, to cope, just do it as a public face. They act very, very much with the program, and then behind the scenes they have their doubts. Sometimes people that they would normally agree with, they come out more out front about their doubts or their concerns about whether we're taking this too far, and are we following what the facts and the statistics really are saying. we've got to recognize the immense amount of pressure that's being put on public officials to go with the program, stay with the program, because they cannot afford to look like they're not caring about people. But then again, how do you justify trillions of dollars of spending when it trickles down to the rest of us? So we have to change our ways of usual ways of dealing with things, I think, to get through this in a healthy way. In the war, there were all kinds of people who would rebel from the, they're considered heroes now, the people in Paris in the underground, or the people in Norway or other places that were fighting the Nazis and helping people stay alive, be free, underground networks of things. We've had them here. There was even a story about an underground network on on Cranberry Isle, written in a book, a set of books called the Gray Whale series, that were written about the Cranberry Island, it was called, by a woman who visited here and wrote these murder mysteries. They're popular, Karen McInerney's books. In one of them, she said that there was an underground railroad that was operating at one time here. She throws a lot of things in there. She's a cook. She likes to throw ingredients into a book as well. But anyway, the idea that underground railroads happened even here, the seeming backwater. There's a lot that happens in places that are seeming backwaters. I mean, we have representatives here of every oligarchic interest probably on the planet in one way or another in this small area of Maine in Hancock County. It's phenomenal. I used to know that I was told when I was running for office that a great deal of people that were ex-CIA and that sort of guys, they liked Kennebunkport and they liked Mount Desert Island area and some of the towns here. And so those two places that I've lived have had their fair share of spies. I don't see anybody on the road right now, so far so good. But I'm darned if I'm going to lose my irreverence and my my core interest in being a real patriot. And what was that? The Thomas Jefferson, one of them said that you to really be in service to your country, you have to watch out for its government. And right now our government's taking advantage full throttle of all of us staying at home and not causing any trouble, being good little boys and girls. And that is always a program for disaster. If we just always go with the program that we're handed, the powers that have an interest in exploiting us will just have a heyday, and they won't want to stop. They won't want to give us the freedoms back that we have so easily relinquished. And I'm very concerned about that. And we did it because we were afraid, but we've got our wits about us. We have a chance to get back up on our feet and say, hey, I agree with sensible measures, but not insensible measures, and we have to distinguish between them. We can't just buy the whole thing, whole hog. There are good things about vaccines, and there are not good things about vaccines. There's good things about wearing personal protective equipment in most cases, but there are considerations, and we have to be conscious and cognizant of what those are. And there are good things about social isolation if it's necessary, but to many people, it's creating disasters of ramifications, and it's a short-term solution anyway. I mean, even in a prison, isolation isn't forever. You can't do that to people. They don't survive, especially not the old, the indigent, the infirm. Use the wrong word there, but the old and infirm. The sickly, the old, those that are already susceptible to things, and then you isolate them. Maybe they'll survive getting this virus. What happens when they go out? What happens to when they go out in the community? They're terrified. They've probably been undernourished. They've definitely had not enough, energy from other people by way of affection, love, caring, at close range. It's they're taught that they are a danger to themselves and others in their final years on the planet are spent in an agony of confusion and terror, with no end in sight. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I'm angry about how we have to change our habits. And one of them was, before we get entrenched in these things that are coming down the pike and people expecting us to change for them, we have to know what we want to change for us, what we're not going to change. And I'm not going to change talking about things, looking at things on the internet, finding out what's what, going to BitChute and Facebook censors things. You know, there's alternatives. I'm not happy about the censoring at all, but especially in our communities, we've got to be able to talk. I have a voice. You all have voices, and if we don't use them, God help us. Anyway, that's my message for today. Have a wonderful day.